Okay, so I read chapter 30, and the chapter's title, Caster Semenya. And she was a South African runner, and she set a world record in the 1800-meter sprint at the 2009 African Junior Championships. And she was 18 years old, and she was in the Olympics. So the thing about her, they were like, why is an 18-year-old like winning everything? And so they decided like, well, they started accusing her like she was like a man or something because she was so muscular and she didn't have I guess you'd say like the female body, like she just didn't have like hip, just like
Yeah.
straight. So they were accusing her of that. And basically this whole chapter talks about how like for women, like if they are a good athlete, they probably have something like they're probably either too manly, too masculine. Um, so she was going into Olympics, but they like people were like, like TV shows were like trying to get her to do like testing, like, well, she obviously has to be a man, or because
Yeah.
she had a deeper voice for a woman, and she just wasn't like built like a woman. So they're like, okay, she must be a man. But can you imagine if you're an 18-year-old and then like all these news outlets are like accusing you of being like the
Yeah,
opposite?
that's crazy.
And then
That
she started like having like suicidal like thoughts because of that.
oh god.
I,
So like what happened to her? Does it say?
so she had to go to like a gynecologist and get like tested,
Oh my
and
gosh.
basically they found that um she was an I guess you call it intersex. It's like basically like someone that has a little bit more testosterone, like for a woman.
Oh,
It doesn't
yeah.
mean they're like biologically a man. It just means they have a little bit more. So,
Yeah.
but the whole argument to this is they wouldn't have tested like say Michael Phelps for like swimming, like any kind of like famous male athlete, but they tested her because she was a woman and she was 18 and she was African American. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's actually really crazy.
yeah. I
Because
just couldn't imagine being accused of the opposite sex and then like, just,
that would make me, I can't even imagine like how that would make me feel if I was like an athlete. Because
I'd be offended. Like I would actually no, I'd be more offended. I'd be like, that would probably make me cry.
I know that would make me like so angry that I would cry because like it's just the fact that she had to go get tested and they were accusing her and just because she's good. Like
Yeah, it's just like it wasn't like they just found something like different about her. But usually, a lot of good athletes are not built
yeah.
as a person. They have something special about them, and it doesn't mean they're you know
Yeah. It's that's crazy. It's weird because in my chapter, like it kind of talks about well masculinity in sports, obviously, but
uh,
um the I wrote down something and it was just it. Well, it said okay. I'll be able to come back to it. I don't know where it is in my notes, but
uh,
because I wrote down, I didn't want to write down the whole thing, so I marked the paper or in my it's like the seventh line. Um, Okay. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. I
you'll
guess I'll just talk
like
about mine. Okay. Well, it was like talking about how sports teach men to be manly, and like, oh, I wrote this down because this was interesting to me, and I was going to ask you a question of this. It says kids become more aware of, like, talking about male and female behavior. Kids become more aware of these distinctions and increasingly use sex segregated athletics to discuss and act out gender differences. So I was just gonna ask you, like, when you were little and like you know how you had recess,
yeah.
like, was it like weird? Like, I guess how do I word this? Like, was it like only boys playing one sport, and then were
Yes.
you like
Mhm.
allowed to like go in and play with them, or were they like, no, you're a girl, you can't play?
They're basically like, no, you're a girl. Like we can't play. Like only guys can get to play. Like just like if
Yeah,
they're playing, I don't know, basketball or
yeah, because right after I read that, I just thought about that, and I was like, because that happened to me when I was little too, like more like younger years. Once I got to like
yeah, they
middle
didn't care.
school, yeah, but like younger years, like they were like, no, you're a girl. So I just thought that was interesting, and then um, this chapter also like it's just weird because all the chapters just seem to like connect in some way because this says
Uh,
men from lower status backgrounds saw sports as their only hope for success, and like I think it was a couple chapters ago we talked about like how lower economic people like typically like try to go for sports because they don't see any other way to succeed.
yeah,
So like oh shoot. I thought that was interesting, and then um I guess I will read the it says female reporters, homosexual athletes, and men who challenge the dominant culture of men's sports, especially in the sacred place of the locker room, quickly learn that sports are not just dominated by men, but also dominated by thinking and habits understood to be masculine. And in opposition to the more nurturing values of compromise, cooperation, sympathy, understanding, and sharing, typically associated with like feminine aspects.
yeah,
I just thought that was really interesting because like I just I just don't know. I feel like that all ties into like also how girls like are looked at as less feminine if they play sports, certain sports. Because like this whole chapter is talking about like how sports make men more masculine and like how
yes.
it
And
just
then
helps.
if they are like a good athlete, they're either a man or I think. Well, at the end of the chapter, it makes this statement. It says, "Unfortunately for women athletes, you can't be too tough for the fear you'll be called a lesbian. You can't be too aggressive for the fear that you'll be called mannish. You must be an outdated stereotype of a woman before you're an athlete." That's what it
Yeah,
says at the end of the chapter.
yeah. It's just I don't know. It's weird. It's weird how like society views women in sports because like I never even thought about it like that because I've like always grown up playing sports and
Mhm.
so like I just feel like it's normal. Like you
It might
know,
have been like more like it hasn't been like that for me, but like I feel like it could get to that point if you're going into like the Olympics or like something like I don't think they'd do it in college, maybe, or
yeah,
I feel like if you say if that female athlete is like beating records and they're like not the stereotype like girl, then they're probably like, oh well, she has to be like a man or she takes steroids, like that kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. I agree. There, okay. All there's this girl that plays for one of the colleges in our conference, I think, and she is like huge, and everyone on our team like thinks she's like taking steroids. And I just think about this because
Yeah,
it's really cool, but she's like, I don't even remember what school she plays for, but she's like really, really buff and like really fast and really good. And like everyone on our team thinks she takes steroids, which I mean, I don't know, but she is like pretty big for a girl. I
yeah,
think I think girls can be like big or whatever, but like it just I mean, maybe she just has really good genetics and she just like worked on like getting muscular, but that just reminded me of that because like even like our trainer who which is do you know Chris?
yes.
Yeah, he was just he thought she was on steroids too. So I just wanted to like relate that because like I see it in our sport sometimes because there are big girls on like the soccer field.
You
So
don't really see that in beach volleyball or like I think you'll see it probably in basketball and soccer and
yeah,
I don't know. I used to play basketball like when I was in like my freshman year of high school. And I remember this girl and she was like 6'6". She was huge. And I played post and I'm not that tall anyway. And like my whole team be like, "Oh, she's a man." And I'm like, I don't think she's a man. I think she's just there's some people like just genetically like gifted, I feel like,
yeah, yeah. No, I agree with that. But
And like for the case of is it Castor? Yes, Castor. Yeah, Castor's like I feel like well she was like African like because she grew up in that area, so she's probably like ran all her life and she's probably like genetically built like that. Like just
Yeah.
her experiences doesn't mean she's taking steroids or
Yeah.
she talks deeper. It just because you've heard very African like people, they have like a distinct like accent.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I just think that's the media's way of just trying to put her down, her like athletic ability, and kind of like take away from that and like, oh, she's
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But
but I don't know. I just couldn't imagine like you're being forced to like prove that you're a woman. Like that's
yeah, that's crazy. Like I would just I feel I don't know, like that's just so weird to me just cuz they would never do that with like a man obviously.
no, they wouldn't.
Like
They'd be like, oh, he's just his parents had good genetics or something, like just
yeah.
something crazy. Like, oh no, he must be a woman, or I'm just gonna say like you would never hear that. Like,
Yeah.
ugh.
So,
I just read that chapter and I was like, I just couldn't imagine just being in that like spot, like especially an 18-year-old too. That's young.
that's actually really interesting though. Like that actually happened cuz I
And
just
she just like was like getting depressed. Like, I mean, I'd be depressed. Like they basically leaked out biological like evidence and like leaked it out to the press, and then they started posting it on all like news channels, and I'm like, that's like something you probably shouldn't share, like because it wasn't true. They took whatever evidence the doctor found and like try to make it like she was a man.
yeah.
So, but
Yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, that's all I have on my notes, but I feel like yours was more interesting. Your chapter was a little more interesting than mine, just because I just wow. I wonder if that's. I mean, I'm sure that's happened more throughout, like probably throughout more professional
I think
sports. Not
Serena Williams. I think they probably have made that argument against her because she's like muscular,
yeah.
huge. Like she probably beat anyone up. But
Honestly, yeah. No, I don't remember. There was like a thing with her that happened. I just don't remember really what it was. It was like something about the. I don't know what the refs are called if they're called refs, but
yeah,
something I don't even. Did you hear about? I don't know. I don't know, but
what you mean is I think the ref called something on her and she got mad and then they carded her. And
oh,
then I think the whole argument was like if that was like a man, they wouldn't have carded her or something. Like
oh,
I guess they compared it to like men's tennis. I don't know.
that yeah, I remember seeing a whole thing about that. But yeah,
Well, this is why you don't go to the Olympics. You'll get accused of something and
yeah.
you're leaked to the press. And not like I don't think I'm going to get to the Olympics, but
But, you never know. It
you
could
never know.
happen.
One day I just show up and be like, yeah, I'm going to Olympics, guys. Bye. I'm not good. No, they're. Well, do you have anything on your chapter?
um, the only other thing, let's see, that I didn't say. It says that sports provide an outlet for these inherently masculine traits. And oh yeah, I found that interesting because I was like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like sports, like if you look at like the stereotype for like girls and boys, like girls are probably supposed to be cheerleaders and girls are probably supposed to dance, and then boys are supposed to play like the more
Yeah.
like dirty sports. And like I just don't. I think like the stigma around sports is like it shouldn't be like masculine. It
Hmm.
should cause, like there are plenty of like good women athletes that are really good at what they do, and like it doesn't make them less of a woman just because they like play that sport. You know what I mean?
Or like even like if you see like a woman athlete and she's just more muscular than the rest of them, doesn't mean that she's taking steroids or anything. It just might be
Yeah.
just some people are like genetically built up differently. Like I'll
Yeah.
never be able to get that like big. Like that's just not.
Oh, me either. Like for me, like I'm small. Like I'm like 5'1". Like I'm like the smallest on the soccer field usually, and like and it's just like, I mean, I can't control that, but like there are some girls that like we go up against that are like 6 feet tall, and
Yeah,
like it's
it's
just
not
like,
like, oh, they're a man and you're more woman. It just like that's just genetically how we're like people are built up. Like, because my
yeah,
mom, she was skinny, like she was like me, bone and then just muscle, and that was it. Like, there's no, but that's what like my brother, like he gets aggravated because he's like, I can't get bigger, like it just
yeah,
some people are like genetically built up differently.
yeah, yeah. But your dog is so cute.
Daisy, hi Daisy.
Oh, she's so cute.
Well, that completely
Oh,
ruined her talk. We got distracted. She's gonna be like watching the video, and she's gonna be like,
she's like, what the heck?
being like, "This is not." Well, you got anything else on yours?
I think that's all I got.
I don't know. I thought my chapter was pretty. I didn't. I just kind of picked it too. I was like, okay, she can read 29. I can read 30, and then I read it, and I was like, this is kind of interesting. I don't know.
But I mean, in a way, it kind of like all ties together.
Everything talks about like gender and how the media kind of overlooks like different gender, and I don't know, because every chapter seems to be about like how media perceives like different like men and women in sports, basically.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. But
Well, I'm gonna stop the recording here.